here for CAA football, the Blitz, as we continue.
And he may go the distance. Terrence
You're going to put yourself in a situation and win a lot of football games.
Welcome in, CAA football fans, to the Blitz. I'm Bobby Broyles, here again with my colleague Scott Meyer. And Scott, it was easy to pick out the headliner from this past weekend's action, the shootout in Norfolk between Old Dominion and New Hampshire. But before we go over all the records that were shattered in this contest, we need to rewind to last week's episode to see what you had to say about that game. And Scott, a lot of people, including myself, believe this is going to be a track meet, but you think otherwise.
I do kind of think otherwise. I mean, if you talk to both coaches, obviously New Hampshire, Old Dominion like to get up and down the field on the offensive side of the football. But in game planning, maybe they go a different direction and maybe play a little bit more ball control to keep that other offense off the field. So look for this to be a contrasting style, maybe more of a knockhead type of football game to where they kind of control the clock to see who can come out on top. But then again, you could always go back and see a 65-60 game with both offenses scoring at will.
All I have to say to that, Scott, is that it happens to the best of them. But what a show these two teams put on this past Saturday. You were there live. What was it like witnessing a game like this?
It was unbelievable, Bobby. Early on, I think it was one of those exciting type of games where New Hampshire was leading at the half. New Hampshire was playing well, forced a turnover on the opening kickoff, score on the very next play. Then it became a back and forth battle. I think overall then you started to see the heat play a role in that game. A lot of arm tackling and that kind of thing, which allowed the offense to put up prolific numbers. Take a look at Taylor Heineke's numbers. 730 yards passing, 6 off of an NCAA record at all divisions, best record amongst FCS and FBS, going back to David Klingler in Houston. Then on top of that, look at New Hampshire's offensive numbers. Nico Sturriddy, first New Hampshire running back to go over the 200-yard mark since 2001, and Stephon Lewis. Combined offense for both teams, more than 1,500 yards. That's better than any NCAA record ever set by nearly 150 yards going back to 2010. It was an offensive showcase.
It certainly will be a game that will be remembered for a long time. Some more exciting action and key matchups are lined up this week, but before we get to them, let's take a look back at the highlights and players of the week from Week 4 around CAA football. Record books were shattered Saturday afternoon as the Old Dominion Monarchs faced off with the New Hampshire Wildcats. The Wildcats scored early and often as sophomore quarterback Andy Vallis threw for 3 first-half touchdowns to give New Hampshire a 40-24 lead at the break. Third quarter, more of the same as Vallis finds Joey Orlando for Orlando's second touchdown of the day, Wildcats up 47-24. Then the Monarchs' comeback begins, led by a record-setting day by quarterback Taylor Heineke, who threw for a Division I record 730 yards and 5 touchdowns to tie the game at 61 late in the fourth quarter. ODU kicker Jared Brown drilled a 25-yard field goal with 41 seconds remaining to win the game for the Monarchs as they knock off New Hampshire in a shootout 64-61. The Villanova Wildcats made the short trip to Franklin Field to take on the Penn Quakers. First quarter, Villanova freshman quarterback John Robertson continues to be very impressive for the Wildcats, connecting with Norman White for an 18-yard touchdown to give Villanova the 7-0 lead. Robertson would find the end zone again in the third quarter, this time on the ground as he runs it in from 26 yards out. Robertson finished with 268 yards of offense, and Villanova improves to 3-1 with a 24-8 win over Penn. The nationally ranked Delaware Blue Hens paid a visit to Zabel Stadium to take on the William & Mary Tribe. First half, it was the Delaware's defense and special teams doing the scoring, beginning with Zach Kerr's 47-yard interception return for a touchdown to give the Blue Hens a 10-0 lead. Delaware would then extend that lead to 24-0 when Travis Hawkins returned a blocked field goal attempt 90 yards for a touchdown to establish a new NCAA record. William & Mary quarterback Rafael Ortiz scores this 2-yard touchdown late in the second quarter as the Tribe would trail at the half 27-7. Blue Hens running back Andrew Pierce would take over in the second half, scoring 2 touchdowns, finishing with 112 yards on the ground as the Blue Hens go to 4-0 with a 51-21 win over William and Mary. 2 plays in league play cracked SportsCenter's top 10 plays on Saturday night. Coming in at number 10 was Travis Hawkins' 90-yard blocked field goal return for a touchdown in the Blue Hens' win over the Tribe. Followed by at number 9 was Rhode Island's wide receiver Brandon Johnson Farrell's 56-yard catch and run for the touchdown as the Rams fell to the JMU Dukes 32-7. Offensive Player of the Week goes to Old Dominion quarterback Taylor Heineke, who set Division I records with 791 yards of total offense and 730 yards passing as the Monarchs improved to 4-0 with a 64-61 win over New Hampshire. Defensive Player of the Week goes to Delaware linebacker Paul Warlow, who turned in 9 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble that represented one of the team's 5 forced turnovers in the Blue Hens' 51-21 win over William and Mary. Rookie of the Week goes to Villanova quarterback John Robertson, who earned his 3rd straight weekly honor after passing for 213 yards and a touchdown, while also running in for a 26-yard score as the Wildcats knock off Penn 24-8. Special Teams Player of the Week goes to Towson wide receiver Derek Joseph, who scored on a game-tying 99-yard kickoff return that marked the 2nd longest kickoff return for a touchdown in school history as the Tigers beat St. Francis, PA 46-17.
Week 5 is upon us, and Scott, we have 2 great games that might tell us a little bit more about certain teams in our league. Let's begin with a noon kickoff as the New Hampshire Wildcats look to bounce back as they play host to Delaware, who looked very impressive versus William and Mary.
Yeah, you take a look at both of those teams, and in particular this game in and of itself, New Hampshire has to move on. They have to take what they did on the positive end from last week and build on that. Over 700 yards of offense, most of which, or half of which, I guess, was on the ground, which is unheard of in terms of New Hampshire. So the ability to run the ball. So take that, build on it, like Coach Max says, and improve, continue to get better. Delaware, if you talk to Coach Keeler, he wants to get better as well. He felt like his offensive line and the production out of the running backs and Trent Hurley continued to improve. In terms of the defensive side, they made some great plays. You look at the interception and the run back for a touchdown, and on the special team side too, blocking a kick and going 90 yards for a touchdown. Both of those teams are coming off performances that they can build off of. New Hampshire may be a little bit different in the fact that it was a loss, but still, this game will show us what those 2 teams are made of going forward.
A very intriguing matchup in Richmond, kicking off at 3:30 as the Old Dominion Monarchs, coming off of that emotional win over New Hampshire, play a very improved Richmond team that comes in 3-1, and that one loss came to ACC opponent Virginia.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup in and of itself because of Old Dominion's success last weekend and Richmond's resurgence under Coach Rocco. I think the matchup that you look for in this game is Taylor Heineke and his ability to throw the ball in those receivers, and the defensive backfield on the Richmond side led by Cooper Taylor. 3 interceptions in 3 games played this week. If Richmond is able to force Old Dominion to run the football, I think that's one side of Old Dominion's offense that hasn't necessarily been proven. Now, not saying that they can't run the ball, they just need to be able to show it. Also, that matchup of Richmond's offensive line, who hadn't allowed a sack yet, can they keep Old Dominion out of the backfield of Richmond and keep John Lobb upright, who's the 2nd-rated passer in the league. So that matchup there is going to be an interesting to watch. Look at.
Here's a look now at the rest of the matchups in Week 5 around CAA football. Tune in next week, fans, for another episode of The Blitz and see if my friend Scott here redeems himself from last week's breakdown analysis.
Hey, man, I'm not making any guarantees. This league is hard to predict.
For Scott Meyer, I'm Bobby Broyles. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the game Saturday.